Now, we've all heard about The Legend of Zelda: The Wind Waker. It's quite unique after all, thanks to its art style and setting. It also differentiates itself from other Zelda games with its massive overworld, the Great Sea, which must be explored using a boat called the King of Red Lions. This whole game is an indirect sequel to Ocarina of Time, taking place several hundred years after that game. But it's so incredibly different compared to it, which is actually a good thing, because it would be perfect for an open world game. The only thing that stops it from being that is the fact that you first need to beat the 3 starter dungeons. After that, you're basically free to do whatever you want. But there's a way to change this, and it's called the Randomizer. The goal of this version of the game is to defeat Ganondorf alone. Beating the other dungeons is not always required. The way this is done is by completely randomizing every single chest and item location in the game, with the exception of shop item refills, enemy drops, and rewards for breaking pots or cutting the grass. This puts a fresh new twist on the Wind Waker, going from a relatively linear experience that has you go through the dungeons in a set order to an almost open world adventure. So today we will take a look at this new experience to show you all why this Zelda title is the perfect game for such an experience. Now, first up, we will cover the world itself. And as you can imagine, the fact that it's an ocean plays a gigantic role in all of this. It's extremely open. When you're on your boat, in the middle of the sea and just look around, you can see all kinds of different islands, potential treasures, potential dungeons, and a whole lot more. Exploring in this game is really easy because everything you can potentially go to is directly in your sight. If you see a certain island in the distance, you can just go there straight away. Just make sure the wind is right, open your sail, and there you go. If we look at another Zelda game like Twilight Princess for example, then you can see that it's not really possible there. There are all kinds of boundaries in that world after all. Ridges, mountains, there are only certain set paths that can take you to certain places, and more. Stuff like this is very limiting, and we don't really have this problem in the Wind Waker. We can sail anywhere, at any time. When I picked up the original when I was younger, I loved the fact that you could see anything and really go to it straight away. The thing that ruined it, however, is that you first need to beat the 3 starter dungeons. This really bothered me back then, and it still does. But this randomizer completely solves that problem and takes away a lot of the limitations from the game, which is a good thing in my opinion. Another great advantage of the fact that the world is a sea is that you can hide things underneath it all. In the original, looking for treasure chests and stuff like that in the sea is quite a big element, since that's also how you find the Triforce pieces. And if you don't remember that, then you haven't touched this game in a really long time, because gosh, that takes long and is tedious. Anyways, in this randomizer, it isn't really a problem, because all the chests that you find contain random stuff. Rupees, crucial items, more maps, a ton of other things. Anything is possible, really. That's the cool thing about it. All of a sudden, all the treasure chests hidden in the ocean are just a lot more important. They can contain anything. In the original, it was fun but a bit dull, because the rewards usually weren't that good. Personally, I would love to compare this game to Breath of the Wild. This is also an open world Zelda game where you can go anywhere, even though it's on land. Now, the reason why you can go anywhere is because of the climbing and the glider that you have. If there's a certain mountain in your way, you can just climb on top of it and conquer the entire mountain. Or if you're somewhere high up and want to go down, then you can just use your glider to slowly get there without falling down and instantly dying. This way you can explore the world and nothing stops you. And this also goes for this gigantic ocean. Now that the story limitations are gone, there's nothing really stopping you. The world is open and you can sail anywhere, you can go to any island, go in any cave as long as you have the correct items and stuff needed for it. You can basically do anything. Really, the world in this game works so well for a randomizer, it's crazy. Thiefbug and I are still kind of confused till this very day why Nintendo just didn't turn this into an open world game. They could have easily done so, and it would have turned into a great Zelda title for sure. Maybe even better than the original. Now on to our next point, the gameplay. Here we can also see quite a lot of changes that are actually good. First of all, when you start a new game, you never know what you're in for, because every time you do so, you spawn at a random point somewhere in the map. There's no story intro, there's nothing stopping you or explaining stuff to you or anything like that. You're just at a random point somewhere in the map. It can literally be anywhere as far as I know, and there you go. You just have to begin your adventure and figure out what the hell you want to do. In my opinion, this is incredibly fun and makes for a good, quick beginning without any hassle or dialogue or story or whatever. You can just go do whatever you want straight away. And that's great! Sure, in the original Outset Island is a lot of fun, and a good starting area. However, after seeing it so many times, because I played through that game around 3 times by now, then you're like, I don't really care about this. So it's quite refreshing with these randomizers that you start somewhere random in the map, and that you can just figure out what you want to do. Luckily enough, when you start a new file, you do get some bare essentials like your sword, shield, certain Wind Waker songs, and some other little things. This makes sure that you have enough options to do a lot of things in the map at least. So, alright, you started your file and you're in a random place, but what now? Well, this game is really gonna test your knowledge now, because you have to figure out what to do. Therefore, you need to know the game. So I don't really recommend doing this randomizer when you've never played the Wind Waker, because it's not really a good first experience of the game. However, if you've beaten the Wind Waker at least once, then a randomizer is perfect. It will really test your knowledge, because right from the beginning, you need to start looking for chests. Because all of them contain new items and new stuff that you would potentially need for any other things found in the game. So the more chests you find, the better. Another thing this randomizer does is completely change the experience from a gameplay perspective as well. It all goes from a linear, gigantic world with a set path to just a gigantic world with so many options that even when you think about it, you get confused. Because a lot of the things that would normally stop you in this title, like cutscenes or requiring certain actions before you can do one thing or another, those are all gone. So when going through the world, there's literally nothing that will stop your adventure, not even for a second. And the reason why they did this is to enhance the effect of the open world. For example, you first need to visit a certain character in order to progress the game. Well, that wouldn't be fun, especially if you already have the required item to, for example, go in the dungeon. And so they got rid of it. But what about the items that you don't want? Do you have to collect those as well if you want to beat the game? Well, not really. You just need the bare essentials basically, and then you can just finish the game. A lot of the items seen in the original are actually completely useless in this randomizer. The Chingle Tuner, for example, who cares? You don't really need it. It's not gonna add anything to your gameplay. It's not gonna add anything to your adventure. That's the beauty of this title. You aren't really forced to do anything. A bunch of items you don't need, who cares? If you just want to get the bare essentials and run through it all, then you can do that. You don't have to get everything, because as long as you have the items that you would need to finish the game, you're golden. Now, I want to mention one last thing for this little gameplay segment. And that's the areas you would never explore or barely explore in the original. There are some places in the Wind Waker where you could just explore and go through it all, but in the end, the reward would be a bit lackluster. But in this randomizer mode, those chests can contain anything. So all of a sudden, going to these areas you would normally never explore because it's not worth it, is all of a sudden worth it. Now that I think about it, the element of surprise is also a great thing about randomizers. I like exploring a cave and finding something really special or unique at the end of it that I never, ever expected, even though I've beaten this game 3 times. However, there's one last point I want to touch on: speedrunning. Because man, oh man, randomizers give speedrunners so many options. It's absolutely insane. However, I am not the person that will explain all of this. I won't show you all the cool things you can do when it comes to speedrunning and this randomizer, because now it's Thiefbug's turn.
Randomizers are usually designed to be beaten glitchless, but glitches can help quite a bit when it comes to beating them. Not only do the speedrunners' glitches help with beating the randomizer, but they can also give a better understanding of the game to the speedrunner himself. For example, randomizers increase the general knowledge of locations and items and the overworld, so if a runner gets stuck in a place and has to think of a backup, he has more options to actually think of locations on where to get a desired item, or rupees for example. Also, some randomizers come with glitch logic. This means that the randomizer can only be beaten with the use of glitches, as that one is actually intended for this, but this one is not in Wind Waker yet. In addition, speedrunners already have a huge portion of the map memorized in their head, so when doing randomizers, having the map and item locations memorized helps them with the randomizers themselves a lot. But not only that, glitches can also help to do randomizers out of logic, because they can reach items that were originally not intended to be obtained just yet. This helps to obtain in-logic items a lot faster. Also, randomizers help a lot with the progression understanding of the game, because speedrunners need to know when which layer is active and what crashes the game and what doesn't. During Wind Waker, this is extremely important due to the way the game works, but randomizers help the runner understand this progression layer even more. So not only do glitches help with a randomizer, but randomizers in general are really helpful for understanding the game even better than the runner did before.
Thanks for watching, everybody. I hope you enjoyed. If you want to watch more videos, be sure to click the annotations on the screen right now. And be sure to subscribe and click the bell button. Then you won't miss anything.